Hello and welcome to my video. In this cryptid spotlight we will be looking at what is known as a brownie or house elf. This video idea was actually suggested by one of my subscribers, so a big thank you goes out to Jordan Jaffa Rogan. The brownie is found in the folklore of Scotland and northern England. There are similar creatures in other cultures, but many reports claim it isn't just a make-believe being. A brownie, on principle, is a house spirit that does random chores around the residence, but is rarely ever seen or heard. They are described to be rather small, about 3 foot tall, be brown in color, and have straggly hair. Sometimes it can be noted that the brownie is seen with the typical pointed hat, but no eyewitness reports support this claim. Depending on the location, a brownie can take on other descriptive qualities. Highland brownies are said to not have fingers or toes, but lowland ones are said not to have noses. This creature can be helpful and mischievous, if it so chooses, and sometimes it will help clean up, or if it gets upset, it will rearrange a room just to mess with you. While they keep to themselves, mostly it is known that they appreciate gifts of cream, bread, or milk. With these gifts, they will become irritated if you state it as payment for their services, and they will leave your house never to return. I have learned from experience that brownies are not fond of being referred to as fairies. It also can be stated that brownies will get upset and leave if the family gives them a nickname. It can be part of the same. They are notorious for being very hard to keep happy, where minor things can set them off, and they either leave or cause havoc. Just so it's said, because I have to touch on this, yes, Dobby in Harry Potter was a form of a brownie, and the story about them leaving if given clothes applies outside of the book or movie as well. It should also be stated that if a brownie is angered enough, it is reportedly able to turn into a boggart, which its activity will be similar to a poltergeist, where it will throw things, break things, torment animals, and spoil food. The brownie has made its way into the United States culture, with the Cleveland Browns football team utilizing it as its official symbol. I know they also have the dog as their symbol, but the brownie still is part of it. I personally never knew what the creature was, nor did I think it existed, until an event about 6 years ago. I think I touched on this on a previous video, but this was one of the events that my wife actually thought I had totally lost it. But I was laying in bed. It was the daytime. And I was laying there and she was on the computer across the room. And I happened to look up and I saw what looked like a little, the best way to describe it was like a little gray cat facing away from me. You know, if you looked at the back side of a cat, where it was kind of gray and everything. And it was sitting there digging into blankets between my feet, and I stared at that thing for the longest time, and I couldn't figure out what it was, because I knew it wasn't a cat, and we didn't have cats at the time. And so I looked over at my wife, and I looked back, and it was gone. But I had stared at it for quite some time, and I had told my wife about it, and she seriously thought I was going nuts, and I don't blame her, because that was strange. And then it was a couple days after that, she came up to me and said that she kind of had a similar kind of experience, where she was standing in the kitchen and happened to catch out of the corner of her eye while she was working at the stove. There was about the size that they're talking about, 3 foot tall creature standing there. And the way she described it, she said it kind of looked like Dobby from Harry Potter. But it was sitting there acting like it was scratching at one of the doors, like it was trying to get something off of it. And she watched it for a good while out of the corner of her eye, and then when she finally looked straight at it, it disappeared. Well, the one night, and this comes into the fairy part of it, the one night we were laying in bed, and I don't know why, but we had a barbecue sauce bottle. It was unopened. It was laying there by the side of the bed. I think we got groceries and it got left there. We took stuff upstairs and what have you. But we were laying there, and this bottle was on the floor. And I happened to be talking to my wife, and we were discussing about the brownie, because we had looked it up at this point and decided this is what must be what it is. And I happened to just say, kind of sarcastically, that, oh yeah, it's our house fairy. And I swear to God, all of a sudden I got smacked with something really hard on the leg. And here come to find out it was that barbecue sauce bottle. So I'm not really sure how it made it off the floor to the bed, but I guess it did. So that's why I came to the decision that it was didn't like being called a fairy. On a side note, what really all brought this on, it seemed, was we had a tree out back, and I know that there's scientific reasons, and I'm sure we're gonna get comments about it, but about the fairy rings that go outside. Well, there was one that formed by a tree that we had back in the back of the house, and I had been out there digging and chopping away at it to clear it out. And it wasn't long after that that we suddenly got this being in our house, and I think it had something to do with messing with the nature outside. But we also read that you should give it gifts of like milk or cheese or what have you, as I stated in this video. And oddly enough, it seemed the moment that we did, it got all upset and left, because that was the last time we ever saw it, and it's the last time we ever heard of it either. And so, like I said, you do have to be careful with them if you care to even have one. And I seriously didn't think they existed. I wasn't a believer in the fairy realm and all that stuff. I mean, I believe in UFOs and all that stuff, so it's crazy to think I wouldn't believe in something else, but I never believed in the fairies and elves. But yeah, after that moment, I definitely believe they exist. And come to find out, talking to my wife about it, her grandmother apparently had a spot in the house where it was never went into, and if I remember correctly, the story was that there was something like a bed set up in there, and just this little compartment. And my wife said that she would ask her grandmother about going in there, and her grandmother would tell her, "You don't go in there. That's not for you." So apparently, maybe this house elf followed, because that's one thing that they like. They like to have their own little spot. But if you're still with me and don't think I'm insane at this point, I will end this. So with that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.